asking for a raise. As an employee, asking for a raise is one of the hardest things we could do. We've all been there. We've all been that guy that says, oh man, I'm the best damn employee we have, but I don't get a raise. And I'm the best. I'm the best. And then your next buddy, your buddy around a water cooler says, well, how about you go ask for a raise? And you go, no, I can't do that. I'll get in trouble. They'll fire me if I ask for a raise. And this is extremely common, and we've all been there in one way or another. And and it really comes down to who you are and what kind of person you are. But today we're going to go through what you should consider if you're going to ask for a raise. Now, before you ask for a raise, you just need to check yourself. Check yourself for just a minute. You need to ask yourself some very important questions about yourself. You need to ask, is the job that I'm doing for the company, is it making the company money? Or am I saving it money in any way, shape, or form? Or am I just costing the company money? And if you don't know, typically if you're costing them money, you're looking at something like you're in a customer service role or something of that nature. You're in a position, you're not in a sales position. You're not in a sales position whatsoever. Which a majority of the people who are employees are in a situation to where they cost the company money. They don't produce goods. They don't produce services. They don't sell anything. They are just there as a necessary evil from the company's perspective. Now, before we get too deep, the part we need to understand about this is that the wage you are getting represents how they see you and what kind of value you have within their company. So the lower the amount is that you're getting paid is how replaceable you are. Now, yes, commission-based jobs and also tip-based jobs certainly are slightly different, but still the same rule applies. If you're getting paid less, you're extremely replaceable. And as you get paid more, your replaceability comes down. So you just need to keep that in mind. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about a thing called value bias. Now, value bias is basically how an employer feels about you. Usually how a supervisor feels about you. You're either they really like you or they're kind of about you. And if you need help understanding this concept, just imagine you're getting a gift. So if you've ever received a gift in your life and you received one where you open it up, you're all excited, and then you open it up and you find out, oh man, okay, thanks for the bland tie. I didn't really need one. And you're like, yeah, I got a tie. Or, maybe you received, I don't know, maybe as a kid you received a toy and you're like, I already got one of those. I don't need that G.I. Joe anymore. Or you pull open the package and go, I've always wanted that one. This is value bias. And so value bias in the workplace is just that. You are either the gift that the employer always wanted, or you're the one that they're kind of about. Now, if you don't think that your employer does value bias, you're wrong. Every employer has it. Now, if you're a one-man band and like you're self-employed, that's a little different. But if you are an employee, your employer somewhere in their mind or on a piece of paper, they've already determined your value within the company. And so they won't ever discuss it with you, but there's an unconscious or conscious value bias about how much value they place on you working for them. And why am I talking about this? Well, the value bias plays a huge role in whether you're going to get promoted or not. So before you ever go into the office to ask for a raise, always make sure you know, what is the value that I have for the company? And do I think they value me or not? Now, from an employer standpoint, an employer needs to determine who are the people that they consider need to be raised up and who are the people that they're maybe okay if they walk. And I know this can get into some cold territory for many job seekers, but employers really, really have to kind of make that decision as who they like and who they don't like. Employers will always say things like, well, the cream always rises to the top, which is all well and good. The cream does always rise to the top. The people who are really good will definitely rise to the top. There's no doubt about it. And it's honestly, from being on the other side, from being on the employer side, it definitely does. Some people are just not better, but some employees just get it better than others. The only problem with this is that the cream that rises to the top is completely subjective based upon the supervisor who's making the evaluation. And so if you have a supervisor who hates you and then they get fired and a new supervisor comes in, well, guess what? You get a new chance. You get another chance. You may become the cream that rises to the top. And so just because one supervisor doesn't maybe value as much, it doesn't mean the next guy won't. And just because they maybe don't value you as the cream at the moment, they may find out the hard way that you are rather good. Okay, so this is all well and good, but we need something a little bit more concrete. There are a lot of jobs, and these are generally career jobs, where people get evaluated every year. They get an opportunity to discuss their performance. They get a performance evaluation every year, sometimes twice a year. And if you are in a position where you do not get a performance evaluation every year, there's a pretty good chance you're in a position that does not give raises. You're in a position that you should just not expect a raise. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of true. If you are in a position where you do get a performance evaluation, you're definitely in a situation to where raises are going to happen on a yearly basis and a promotion is possible. So if you're a person where you're not getting a performance evaluation, just understand, generally speaking, your pay is not going to increase. They don't plan on paying you more, and a promotion probably not going to happen. Now, they might end up promoting you into a position like a supervisor position where they'll give you a couple dollars extra. But beyond that, a promotion of real value is not likely. Just to put things in perspective, I worked at a job technical service. I made $9 an hour. They eventually came to me and said, oh, we want to talk to you about your performance. And we've noticed in the last 3 months that you've been doing well. We're ready to pay you two whole quarters extra an hour because of how good of a job that you've done. Now, I was prepared for the smack in the face, so it didn't really bother me. I knew that I was going to get the maximum raise. I knew it was going to happen. And it's okay. It's okay. I was not planning on staying there. And this is the big important part, that if you are in one of these positions where you do not get a performance evaluation every year, a serious one, and every year you are not going to get a raise, this is really what you need to be thinking about. Just understand, when it comes to the employer and it comes to whether they like you or not or anything, the employer always holds all the cards. They know when it comes to pay, they know if you're liked, they know what the pay range is, they know what the company will tolerate, and they know what your value is. They know if they're planning on promoting you or giving you a raise. They already know those, but you don't. You don't, and there's no way for you to know what those cards are and what the values of those cards are, because the employer is holding them. But you do have one card that they don't have, and that is whether to put up with it or not. And that is whether you're going to stay or not, whether you're going to put up with the games that they play. See, whenever the employer is working with you and they're deciding on what your pay is and all these other things, they don't really plan on giving you anything. They just want to tell you all the right things. They're politicians. They just want to tell you the right things so you don't leave. And that's really all it's about. All the employer wants is to make sure you don't leave. The problem with a lot of these sorts of scenarios, and I say this a lot to many job seekers, well, pretty much to a majority of the job seekers that I work with, don't ever let the employer determine your worth. I know that sounds counterintuitive because the employer does determine your worth. But don't let the employer determine whether you're going to stick around only because they paid you an extra 50 cents more an hour. Don't let the employer decide whether you're any good or not. So this is what we do. This is why we get in trouble is we sit around at the job and we sit in our chairs and our cubicles and then we go, oh man, do they like me or not? I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to get fired, and then you have all the apprehension and you think, oh, at any moment, I'm just going to get let go. And then you go into the office and your supervisor sits down and goes, you're pretty good. We're going to give you 50 cents more an hour. How do you feel about that? And you go, thank you, good sir. I'm going to stay here for the next 5 years of my life. And of course, in that scenario, the employer is just saying, yep, exactly. Bravo to me. I managed to keep the employee for 5 more years just by giving them 50 cents more an hour. And that's what we have to get away from. Every employee needs to get away from the idea that they are going to be loyal to their employer. Now, loyalty is super important. It's super important for relationships of all kinds. But when it comes to the corporation, it's just a corporation. You need to be loyal to people. People that you know. Be loyal to them. Love them. Treat them with respect. But the company is not a person. The company is not somebody you should be loyal to. Your supervisor may really like you. Your supervisor really loves to hear about your kids. But the supervisor is not the company. The supervisor can be your friend, but the company never will be. See, a supervisor can say, I promise you that you will always be a remote worker. But as soon as the company says, we don't tolerate remote workers, you're gone. So don't be loyal. There's no option for you to be loyal to the employer. It doesn't do you any good. It might do you good in certain situations to be loyal to certain people. But it doesn't do you any good to sacrifice yourself for the employer. So if you're in this situation, learn the skills that you can, build the relationships that you can, build that resume, show that you can work for 2 years in a job, show that you do know how to use Excel or know accounting in some ways or some other skills. Once you have the skills built that you need, you've gained everything that you can from that employer, go find another job. Now, if your pay is somewhat on the low side, and what I mean by this is, let's just pretend, I know this might be insulting for a few people, but you're in a position where you do have an annual review. You do have a review, but you're maybe on the low side. Maybe you're in the 40,000, 50,000 area, maybe even 60,000. But your title has assistant or junior or maybe just a level 1. You know that at some point a promotion is possible. You're able to go from a junior to just the regular, or go from being a level 1 to a level 2, or, being like an assistant to a non-assistant. You know that's possible. And so there is real reason to stick in those jobs because you can get promoted. And so here are the things that you should do if you're in one of these types of roles. The first thing you need to do is make sure you document everything good that you're doing. If you're learning a new skill, document it. And this could be anything like technology, or, maybe you're learning knowledge about something. You're learning about, agronomic taxes or something. Record it somewhere. Put it down on a list. Make yourself a CV for the year. As soon as you have a review, start recording these things for the year. And build it. If you're taking phone calls on a regular basis, record how many phone calls you take. If you made sales for the year, record the number of sales. Never, ever, under any circumstance, and this goes for everybody, never depend on the employer to keep track of these statistics for you. You need to keep track of them. And so if you made 100 sales in January, make sure you write down that you made 100 sales and write down how much they were. Always, always, always be building your resume in some way, shape, or form. And in this case, so as the year goes, make sure you're recording, you're documenting everything that you're learning and everything you've accomplished. Because when you get to the end of the year and it's time for your review, you'll be able to whip it out and say, here's what I got. Here is what I did over the last year. Because here's what happens in reviews. A manager, a supervisor sits and goes, little Jimmy, I don't know. You've been pretty good, I guess. I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention because you've been so solid over the year. There really hasn't been much to talk about. And then little Jimmy will just say, yes, I know. I sure have. And here's my evidence. And the employer's eyes will get bigger. Yeah, they'll look at it and be like, holy crap. I didn't realize this guy was doing this well. And suddenly they'll go, okay, all right, how about we get you a promotion? Now, during these reviews, when you've done this, when you've done all this documentation, make sure that before you ask for a promotion, make sure you've been there for at least 2 calendar years. Okay, so you're talking like you've been there 16 months or 18 months, but the calendar has flipped over twice. And it is possible to get it in within the second year, but more commonly it's you're able to get it in your second to third year. Now, the only way this really happens more regularly is if you're at the very bottom. And so if there are 5 stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a certain position and you're at the entry level, there's a good chance that in the second year, they'll give you a promotion because honestly, most people are going to be in that 2 through 4 sort of territory. And it's a little weird to have somebody sitting at the lowest end. So I know for me, when I was a programmer, I went from being a programmer 1 to being a programmer 2, and that happened within 2 years. Now, the other thing, when it comes to value bias, you too, if you have an annual review, you will have a value bias assigned to you. Whether you like it or not, they have some value assigned to you in some way, shape, or form. Usually you will see this represented in the percent raise that they give you. If most people are getting 3% raises, yet you get a 1.5% raise, it's probably a little bit of value bias there against you. When you're in the review and you hand them all the accomplishments that you've had over the last year, the employer will be very impressed by all the accomplishments. But then you sneak in, I've done very well. I've really advanced and I'm ready for the next level. And they'll look up at you and you'll get one of 2 responses. Because at this moment, you've required them to play the card. You've required them, they're holding their cards. You've required them to play the value bias card. At this moment, you will find out if they value you or they don't. If they don't, they'll say, well, we'll have to discuss this with management. And, I'm sure we could find something in the next year or 2. If they have a value bias in your favor, they'll say, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think maybe we should look into that. Now, it may take a little bit, but we'll get to that. So asking for a promotion may be one of the scariest things you ever do in life. It's not always perfect. It's not always grand. And in today's society, honestly, with how big our corporations have become and how bloated the environments are, it's nearly impossible to really feel like that you can really earn a great promotion. Now, if you're in a position where you are in a junior position or something of that nature, where you realistically could jump $20,000 a year, you're in a great position and you should work hard for that promotion. If you're in a 9-to-5 job where maybe you're making $9 or $10 or something of that nature, where maybe you're making a rate where maybe it doesn't really help you so much to get an extra 25 cents an hour. Now, if you're working in a job that maybe it doesn't pay so great, maybe you're in a situation to where you don't have an annual review, getting a raise, while 50 cents may have an impact on your life to at least some degree, in the grand scheme of things, the value of getting a raise and value of that job for you, maybe not that great. And always in these situations, should you be planning your future? Because the one tool that you have always is that you can leave at any moment. You can quit. You can leave at the most inopportune time possible. And if you're in a right to work state like I am, you really can. And many job seekers in this area have. They've done it. They've left at the most inconvenient time because the employer didn't take care of them. That is one of the most powerful tools that we have available to us. Now, no matter what you should be doing, no matter what position that you're in, the key to success, no matter which stage you're in, no matter which kind of job you have, is to plan for your future. Is to plan what kind of job you want to get to, what are the stepping stones, and then start following the stones. Because that is what's going to get you ahead. Not hoping and wishing that an employer is going to notice you, because for most employers, especially corporate employers, man, there's not enough hours in the day that we could sit around and wait for the employer to give a crap about us, because honestly, most of them don't. Now, you might have supervisors who care about you, but the employer, for the most part, doesn't. And I realize there are people in situations to where you really will get promoted. That really does happen. But it doesn't happen enough. And too many of us are sitting around waiting to get noticed, waiting for somebody to care. Well, the first person who needs to care is you. That's it for today. I'm SB Graham. This is JobFerno. If you have any questions, send me an email at questions@jobferno.com. And as always, choose skills over money.